Okay, if you don't drink beer, you probably don't want to watch this video, but Oregon is known for their craft breweries. It brings people from all around the country and all around the world just for microbrewery and beer tourism, and the Oregon coast, of course, is no exception. So again, if beer's not your thing, you can go to the next video and check something out. But in this video, we're going to talk about some of the best craft breweries on the Oregon coast, some of the best towns for craft brewing, and we're getting into it right now. What's up, everybody? This is Clem with the Home Team Brokers coming to you from the Oregon coast. And if you want to learn everything there is to know about what it's like to live, work, eat, sleep, play, the pros and cons of living at the Oregon coast, hit the subscribe button, tap the little bell to make sure you're notified every time we drop a new video. And we get people contacting us all the time who are thinking about relocating to the Oregon coast or buying a second home or vacation home here. And we love to hear from you. So if you're thinking about purchasing a home at the Oregon coast or selling a property at the Oregon coast, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, even schedule a Zoom call in the description below. However you decide to get a hold of us, we have your back when it comes to moving to the Oregon coast. Okay, so this video is going to be a little bit lighter on certain specific information about different towns and regions along the Oregon coast, but we're going to talk about craft beer. And one of the things you need to know about Oregon, especially if you're coming from out of state, is craft beer is an enormous part of the culture. And a big piece of that is on the Oregon coast, of course. Pretty much every town you go to on the Oregon coast has at least one brewery. Many of them have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 breweries in the town, and there's certainly some towns that really offer a great craft brew tourism experience, which that's a big part of what brings people to the Oregon coast, whether they're going to the different restaurants, pubs, taverns, dive bars, you name it, or the breweries themselves. People like to get out to the beach, people like to have a couple of adult beverages, and of course craft beer is sort of the pinnacle of that experience. So if you're somebody who is considering purchasing a home at the Oregon coast and you're thinking about checking out some different towns and you want to learn more about what breweries different towns have to offer, what are some of the top breweries on the Oregon coast, that's exactly what we're going to discuss today. And we're going to go north to south like we do in a lot of these videos. Number one, starting with Astoria. And Astoria has a great beer scene, beer culture. Aside from the main breweries that are there are food carts, a lot of restaurants, and just a lot of access to some local Oregon craft beers. But two of the top breweries really in the state of Oregon and probably throughout the Northwest are in Astoria. So you have Brewery, which is right out on the boardwalk in Astoria. They offer a big deck that overlooks the Columbia River with all the barges and ships coming in and out, going out to sea and coming in from sea, and really some of the best beers that you can find on the Oregon coast. So Brewery is definitely one to check out. Also in Astoria, there is Fort George Brewing. So Fort George is set up a few blocks from the river in town, but it's in a really cool historic old building, and probably, at least in my opinion, and from what I hear, as far as what some of the more connoisseurs of craft beer have to say, is that Fort George is definitely a top tier brewery, technically in terms of the style of beers and the types of beers that they do. They're routinely winning awards, Brewery is as well, but I would probably personally choose Fort George over Brewery. However, check them both out. They offer great dining experiences, really cool, just environment and atmosphere overall. And these are great places to, bring the kids, bring your family. It's not just like, a bar that's everyone's getting wasted and it's gritty and dirty and all of that stuff. So there's also Astoria Brewing Company in Astoria, certainly something to check out as well, especially if you're doing kind of some brewery hopping, which a lot of people tend to do on the Oregon coast. So Astoria, if you rank that amongst all of the towns on the Oregon coast, definitely top 5, probably top 3, and some people might say the best craft beer town on the Oregon coast. Moving down, you have Gearhart, which has McMenamins. McMenamins is actually really a local chain. There's 2 McMenamins on the Oregon coast. There's one in Gearhart, which is more of kind of a second home resort style community. And then there's one in Lincoln City, which is more central coast. But McMenamins is a local chain of restaurants and pubs and breweries. They also do distilling at some of their locations. They make wine, and they offer really cool experiences at all of their locations throughout Oregon and Washington. But the McMenamins in Gearhart is the Gearhart Hotel. And so there's a golf course there. There's, I think, a dozen or so rooms, maybe 20 rooms that you can stay in. So it's much more than just a brewery, but of course, beer is something that they specialize in for sure. So check out Gearhart, especially if you're looking at more of a second home or vacation home to purchase. Gearhart's a great spot, and the McMenamins there is, well, it's really the only thing in town, but it's well worth checking out for sure. Moving down to Seaside, which is just south of Gearhart, really kind of connected geographically. You do have Seaside Brewing, which I haven't tried. They have a new location. I'm not sure if it's a newer brewery as well. So I'm not too sure about how much notoriety it's gotten or what people are really saying about it, but the new location looks cool. It's set right on 101, so it's just a little bit east of kind of the main downtown area. But Seaside also has a lot of pubs and places that you can stop and grab a beer, and generally any place you go is going to have a lot of taps with local breweries available. So Seaside is probably the top tourist town on the Oregon coast. So they're definitely going to cater to that, kind of craft brew experience and culture that comes with, being in and visiting the state of Oregon overall. So going to be some good options in Seaside. Moving south, you have Cannon Beach. There's a newer Pelican Brewing location in Cannon Beach. The main Pelican Brewing facility and pub is actually in Pacific City, which is a little bit further south, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But in Cannon Beach, you have a great big Pelican location. There's also Public Coast Brewing, which I actually just went to a couple of weeks ago. Pretty good food, kind of elevated pub food, really good atmosphere. They do have a 21 and older section, so if you're not bringing kids, you can kind of sit away from, a lot of the sections with, families and things like that, if that's not what you're into. But they have a small little gift shop and bottle shop. I'm not sure if it's a restored old building. It kind of looks like it was an older building that they gutted out and rehabbed and made into this brewery / restaurant, and it's really worth checking out. Cannon Beach is definitely one of the top destinations on the Oregon coast. It's a big tourist town, definitely a place that you could live full time. The atmosphere and kind of the amenities of the town, very walkable, very enjoyable. And there's a lot of bars and pubs in Cannon Beach as well. So, if you're not really looking to just, go to the source, to the breweries themselves, there's a lot of other options. And so definitely worth checking out all that Cannon Beach has to offer. So continuing south, we get into Tillamook, which has its own Pelican Brewing location, which I think is the newest of, I believe, the 3 locations on the Oregon coast. It's a little bit smaller, but it's right in town. It's a great spot, and Pelican, is really known for their beers. They're one of the original craft breweries in the state. So they do it right, and their food is really good too. It's burgers and things like that, but it's definitely a notch above your typical pub fare. So if you're checking out the Tillamook area, Pelican in Tillamook is a great spot. There's also Gearhart Brewing in Tillamook, which is a little more elevated in terms of the types of beers that they make. They definitely make beer for kind of, the beer makers and the craft brew connoisseurs. They do like, some European styles, farmhouse ales, things like that. So if that's what you're into, if you're tired of the IPAs and just kind of the standard, types of beer and styles of beer that you kind of find throughout Oregon and the Northwest, Gearhart Brewing in Tillamook is definitely one to check out for sure. And then south of Tillamook in Pacific City, you have, like I mentioned earlier, the primary location for Pelican Brewing, and it's awesome. If you're checking out Pacific City, if you're going through that way, stop at the Pelican there. All the locations are great, but this location in Pacific City is set right on the ocean. It's right on the beach. You can actually drive your car down onto the beach. Pacific City is one of the only towns that has beaches where you can actually drive up and down the coast, at least, and not get a ticket for it. So, but aside from that, I mean, just the location itself is unique. There's not a ton of restaurants, be it a brewery, a fancy restaurant, anything in between, set on the beach so close like that. So that's really kind of the anchor point for Pacific City, and it's a great place to check out. So again, if you're going through Pacific City, definitely check out Pelican Brewing. Okay, so just kind of continuing south down Highway 101, you have McMenamins. Like I mentioned earlier, McMenamins has the hotel in Gearhart. There is just kind of a standard McMenamins pub in Lincoln City. It's a great spot. Every location kind of has their separate, unique menus. Being at the coast, they're going to have clam chowder. They're going to have different kind of more ocean forward, type meals and fish tacos and things like that. And it's a big location, so I believe there's 2 stories to it. So it's a great place to stop and get lunch or just grab a beer if you're in that area specifically. Now I want to take a time out just for 1 second, because I haven't yet explained really kind of the history of craft brewing in Oregon. There was a time where it was actually illegal to sell beer or sell really, I think, any alcohol that you make on the premises that you make it. So there were a handful of kind of the OG breweries in Oregon that banded together and lobbied the politicians in Salem. And it took about 4 or 5 years, I believe. And once it passed, the craft brew industry in Oregon just exploded. Probably plateaued a little bit, 90s, early 2000s, and really since then it's just continued to take off, and there's no end in sight. Occasionally you do see breweries closing. Some just don't make it. Maybe the food's not great, maybe the beers aren't great, maybe the location's not great. It's by no means, a sure thing if you open a brewery in Oregon, that it's going to be successful. But, from my perspective, over the last 10, 15, 20 years, there definitely seems to be more breweries opening up than there are closing. So, it's definitely something that's unique to the state of Oregon. Definitely more breweries in the state of Oregon per capita than most places in the United States or the world. So whether you're moving to Oregon, for kind of the very prototypical or stereotypical Oregon culture, and craft brew is a part of that, or it's something that's kind of new to you and something that you haven't had as much exposure to, you're going to hear about it one way or another. So hence, that's why we're making this video. So where were we? Oh yeah, Lincoln City. Okay, so if you go south of Lincoln City, you're gonna get into Newport. There's a place called Beachcrest Brewing in Newport. I actually haven't tried it, but it sounds like it's a pretty popular place. But you can't talk about Newport, you really can't talk about craft beer in Oregon, or really probably in the country, without talking about Rogue Brewing. I believe they were originally out of Medford or Ashland, Southern Oregon, something like that, but years ago they moved their operations and facility to Newport, and Rogue's not necessarily considered a microbrewery by definition. Definitely started that way, and it definitely kind of holds true to that, that history that they have as kind of pioneers in the craft brew industry. But I remember one time going to New Orleans and I was on Bourbon Street and they had this beer bar, this craft beer bar that had like 100 taps or something like that. And, to my surprise, there was only one from Oregon, and it was Dead Guy Ale from Rogue Brewing. So, and I've actually seen it across, other cities and states around the country as well. So Rogue is very well known. It seems like they do dozens and dozens of different variations of beers every year. And the facility's awesome. They have a pub on site. You can actually tour the brewery. It's right underneath the bridge, which is kind of the big iconic bridge in Newport. And so, probably a lot bigger of an operation than just kind of your mom and pop brewery, or even places that have, a couple of different locations. But certainly worth checking out, and kind of has its name, registered in the history books of Oregon craft brewing as a whole. So a little town that doesn't get talked about that much south of Newport is Yachats. And Yachats is just a quick stretch along Highway 101, but it's a very eclectic, very unique geographically, and kind of the layout and style of the town. It's really kind of, there's no town really like it on the Oregon coast. And if you stop in Yachats, or especially if it's an area that you're interested in checking out, potentially to look at homes, you got to go to Yachats Brewing. Great beer. It's not kind of, stuffy, uptight, about, just kind of how they do things. I think Oregon, the Oregon coast and Oregon as a whole, there's probably a little bit of a reputation of having beer snobs, which, eventually, if you're into that sort of thing, you may find yourself kind of under that umbrella as well. But Yachats Brewing is just a great little spot in a great town, and definitely worth checking out. So continuing to move south on 101 down the Oregon coast, there's a lot of little breweries, but just as the towns kind of get more spread out, there's less people. Probably overall there's less breweries as well, but there are some of the greats, down once you get south past Yachats and Florence and into Coos Bay, kind of that Coos Bay North Bend area. You have Seven Devils Brewing, which I believe they're opening a second location, but the original location is great. It's right downtown Coos Bay. The food is awesome. They have great beers on tap. It's a really big, there's a really big front patio, and there's a lot of seating indoors. I think there's 2 different bars. They do live music. So Seven Devils Brewing, if you're in Coos Bay, is definitely one to check out. And then down into Bandon, you have Bandon Brewing, which, similar to Seven Devils, right downtown Bandon, cool kind of indoor-outdoor in terms of seating, front patio. The last time I was there, saw, I think, just about everyone there had their dog with them. They do wood-fired pizza, really good beer, and just kind of a really cool atmosphere. So if you're in Bandon, definitely check out Bandon Brewing. Further south in Gold Beach, you have Arch Rock Brewing, which I haven't been to, but I believe at least throughout kind of the southern Oregon coast, you're going to find it in bars, maybe in stores, and people kind of seem to rave about it. So if you're looking in the Gold Beach area or stopping through there, definitely check out Arch Rock Brewing. And then once you get down to Brookings, which is right up on the border of Oregon and California, you have Chetco Brewing. And of all the places I've been on the Oregon coast, and I've definitely been to dozens of breweries, not in the same day, of course, but Chetco Brewing was definitely one of my favorite. Brookings is a really cool town. It's definitely off the beaten path. It's a town that, compared to other towns on the Oregon coast, seems to have kind of its own aesthetic and just kind of overall feel. It's definitely less Oregon coast than a lot of other towns on the Oregon coast. And you just kind of have to be there and check it out to feel why and see why. It definitely doesn't feel like a small town, which depending on what you're looking for, and by the way, you got to get in touch and just, tell us kind of what you're looking for in a town, what kind of vibe, how many people, you prefer to be around, how many tourists you want to see coming through every weekend and every week, especially in the summer. Just let us know, schedule a call, or shoot us a text, send us an email, and we can talk about kind of what you're looking for specifically. And we can, create a short list of towns that you should definitely be checking out. But again, kind of last but certainly not least, Brookings, you have Chetco Brewing. Really great selection and huge selection as well. I was really surprised the last time I was there. Actually, the owners were right behind the counter the last time we went there. It seemed to be a husband and wife or brother and sister. I'm not sure, but they were really proud of the beers that they put out and very welcoming, and it was just a great experience overall. There's also Misty Mountain Brewing in Brookings, which I haven't had a chance to try, but it definitely seems to have good reviews and seems to be a place that seems pretty popular there. So wherever you're looking on the Oregon coast, you're not going to be far from a brewery, and it's such a big part of Oregon culture and the culture of the Oregon coast. And so if that's not really something you're into, still, if you have friends and family coming into town, these are places where you might want to take your friends and family, or if you love beer and you can't wait to try, there's just so much to check out. So if you are looking to buy a home, a second home, a vacation home, or you're thinking about relocating to the Oregon coast, give us a call, send us a text, or shoot us an email. Or again, in the description of this video, there's a link. You can click on it, schedule a Zoom call with us, and we can talk about what areas are going to suit you best, so you can kind of get on with kind of narrowing down, that short list, because obviously the Oregon coast is huge. There's a lot of options, there's a lot of variety, but we can definitely help you find the best town for you, and that's what we're here for. So until next time, cheers.